Hey, I'm Michael Dorinda,
And I'm Jake Bennett.
and welcome to episode 151 of the North Meet South Web podcast.
We did it. Okay, so we are trying this where we're uploading or we're playing the intro track live as we're recording here. So we'll see if it comes out right this time. Last time it wasn't perfect, but you know, it's less editing, right? I mean, because you don't have to
Yeah.
combine the tracks, all that good stuff. Plus, we get the video recording, so that's good. That's good.
Yes, I think the only podcast that I am actively editing now is Laravel News.
And that requires editing because we futz around a lot. It's just like,
We futz around and we sometimes
yeah.
say things and get lost, and then we go, hang on, let's
hmm
figure out what we
hmm
actually need to say, and then just put the bit that makes us sound intelligent in the recording.
Yes,
Whereas
it's so
this
nice.
podcast and the other one that I'm doing now with
Ripples.
Greg Skirman, Ripples, is just we record. Although we had some technical difficulties doing that one with Stephen Reese Carter last week, where his internet was being super flaky, and so his internet kept dropping out, and so we were talking to him, and then he disappeared from the recording, and then we had to like skip what we said to him, and then I was like, just pretend that Greg and I spoke. So peeking behind the curtain here
Nice.
a little bit, but
There you go.
it's certainly much easier than having to sort of edit everything and align the tracks and things like that. So
It is indeed. Yeah. So tell me about ripples. Like, so what's the main differentiator for you? So podcast number 3, what's the
Mhm.
what's the main differentiator for you between the different ones? Yeah.
So, I mean, this one we kind of talk about work stuff, right? And
Sure.
technical stuff that we're working on.
Yep.
Ripples is kind of on the back of
They're kind of
Laracon
you.
AU, where I
Yeah.
introduced this. I mean, I didn't introduce the concept of ripples. The ripple effect is like a long-standing thing, but it was kind of tying together, I guess, my story, my journey leading up to Laracon AU. It was recapping everything that had happened, since the last Laracon AU because of COVID. It was tying in Aaron Francis's message about putting yourself out there and trying things and all of that kind of stuff. And so Greg is living that at the moment, doing some consulting. So he's the director of technology at IC Plant here in Australia. And so he's doing, on the back of his talk at Laracon AU last year, a lot of coaching and mentoring and things like that around team leadership and being part of a team and all of that kind of stuff for developers from the point of view of a a technical leader. So not anything around the technical, but it's like, how do I deal with certain situations in work? How do I deal with being a member of a team? How do I, do this kind of stuff? How do I be a member of a high performing team? So he's doing that coaching, and so his ripple story is kind of the journey of, from putting himself out there at Laracon AU, now having, people reaching out to him on the back of seeing that talk, being at that talk, to have that mentoring one-on-one with him. So that's his position. And then so it's a little bit also of less technical and more of the people side of things, which
Sure.
I've dipped in and out of over the years. But him as a leader of software engineers is really big on that. And then we kind of want to then bring in different members of the Laravel community who have lived that rippling. So they've put themselves out there. I want to get Aaron on at some stage. I want to talk to Nuno and people like that have like started by putting themselves out there, and at some point down the track, the good unexpected things that Aaron spoke about at Laracon US last year have happened to them. You don't know when or why or what is going to happen unless you put yourself out there and you wait for that to come around. Luke Downing is a good example, just
Yeah,
quietly
absolutely.
chipping away.
Laracast.
And now, now he's working at Laracast. He's speaking at Laracon. Like all those kinds of people that have kind of just put themselves out there. There's so many of them in the community. Caleb, Daniel, Aaron, came out of nowhere. All of those kinds of people. So that's kind of where we want to get it to, more of an interviewee type thing, where we kind of talk to people about those things. David Hemphill, when he
Indeed
drove down to Little Rock and sort of did the weekend long coding fest to get the first version of Nova. Like that is another tale of being persistent with that. Taylor initially not didn't get why we would have a CMS, and now Laravel Nova is a huge part of the community. So all those kinds of things, and not everything is of that grandiose scale of Laravel Nova, but everyone, so many people in the community have got those kinds of stories. Joe Tannenbaum with his Laravel prompt stuff, just Archer
Yeah,
herself
indeed.
is
Yes.
a huge
Jess Archer is a good one. Yeah. Tim
From
McDonald.
being an attendee. Yeah, Tim, same thing. All these people that are in the community. James Brooks, just like being a pest and asking for, for a job. All of these things. There's so many success stories in our community, and like we know a lot of the popular ones. But if you're a person who's got your own success story, how Laravel has made you successful, then we want to have that conversation as well and see, what it is. Because the amount of times that you see on Twitter people whose lives have been changed, people who have pulled themselves out of a bad career, that they were doing something that they didn't enjoy, and now they're programming, and Laravel has kind of enabled that for them to have a huge shift in their life, in their quality of life, in what they can do and how they can provide for their family. There's a lot of it out there, and it's nice to kind of bring it to light. So yeah,
that's great.
I mean,
I love
that's
that.
the podcast that we're doing. We make no we don't pretend like it was our idea. It's certainly Aaron of all people was the champion of that in our community. So when he's recovered from his paternity leave and his rheumatoid arthritis that he may or may not have, then we would love to have him on the show. So when he's ready, we'll get him on and chat about that. So yeah, that's
cool,
what
man.
that's all about.
I love it. That's great. Yeah, there certainly is lots of those stories of people who have just found their way to breakthroughs in success, overnight successes that took 10 years or whatever. That's the thing.
Exactly right.
So everybody's like, how did you get so lucky? It's like, oh, not really. It's just a lot of work. And so, but when you find something that you love to do, the great thing is it's more of, for a lot of these people, it wasn't so much like I'm going to grind and grind and grind and grind and grind until I find success, although that is part of it for sure. There is definitely a point where you do hit that. But a lot of it is born out of a passion for the thing that they're doing too, right? You can only do that grind for so long before you run out of steam if it's not also something that you enjoy doing at the same time. So it's cool. I love it. That's a great idea. Yeah, honestly. So speaking of that rheumatoid arthritis stuff, dude, I don't know. My hands have been killing me lately. So I've been doing the new keyboard thing, which helps a lot. My left hand stopped hurting, and now my right hand is hurting. And I'm like, what in the world's going on? So I'm like, Aaron, do I have rheumatoid arthritis? How do I go by diagnosing this? I don't think I do. It kind of goes on and off. But my wife got me some like CBD lotion.
Yeah.
I'm like, so that actually worked pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah,
surprisingly,
it kind of
that CBD works for all kinds of things.
Yeah, it really does. And so, and she was like, "Hey, just so you know," she's like, "I think you might be able to like test positive for a drug test if you use this." And I'm like, "No." She's like, "Oh, I don't know. It said something on the box." I'm like, "Come on." Like my work, does random drug tests. Very rarely. But then I looked on the box. It's like trace amounts of THC. Maybe it's like 0.01%. I'm like, yeah, no, I think I'm fine.
You'll be okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'll be all right. So anyway, no, that's been helpful. And then I did get a new mouse. Actually, I got like I've been using the Magic Mouse, and I was wondering if that wasn't part of it because like I pick up that mouse, like I pinch it with my thumb, and
you've got big hands,
right?
too.
Exactly. It's true, yeah. And so like that mouse is just really small, and so I was wondering if my right hand was hurting because I was picking that thing up all the time. And so I got like a Logitech, like MX 3000S or something. I don't know, something like that. And yeah, I used it for the first time today. It was pretty good. And one of the benefits of it was that at my South office, I was using the touchpad. And Wilbur Powery, I was talking to Wilbur Powery, and he's like been using a Magic Trackpad for years, and he's like, dude, my wrist is destroyed. And he's like in his 20s, right? He's like, my wrist is just absolutely destroyed. And so I was using that down there because the desktop that I have down there is like bamboo, and so it doesn't the Magic Mouse won't track on that because the DPI isn't high enough. But this mouse has like 8,000 DPI. So you can use it on like clear glass, this thing. It can like, you know what I mean? That mouse will like, it's crazy. And so it has no problem tracking correctly. And plus there's some other fun buttons on it and stuff that you can do. You know, they have like a horizontal scroller. You have like a backwards and forwards button, which actually in PHP Storm is kind of cool. It acts like what happens if you press like the bracket buttons, which by the way, if you did not know this, if you're in PHP Storm and you press like command bracket, it'll take you to your last editing point. It'll jump you to your last edit point. So like if you're kind of jumping between methods or something, or jump, you know, you can jump forward and jump backwards using the left bracket and right bracket. And I use that all the time now. But just sort of instinctually today when I was using that mouse, I pressed the back button and it popped me back, like doing a bracket left colon or command left bracket. I was like, no way, that's sweet. So anyway, just discovering fun little tricks like that. Yeah, it is pretty good. So yeah, that's been fun. The other thing I recognized today actually is I was using Raycast and noticed that I was looking for like, how do I get into focus mode? Like, you know, do not disturb focus mode, which I couldn't find a good way to do. But I remembered then there was this app called Focus app, and it's like at heyfocus.co or something like that. And I remember that like years and years and years and years ago, we had given away licenses for that on North Meets South. You remember we used to do that? We used to like contact people who sold products and like give away a couple of them on the show. Yeah, like FBAR. I still use FBAR every day, literally every day. Have you used the FBAR in a long time? Oh, every day, multiple times a day. If I need to SSH, all the time. If I need to SSH to one of my servers though, I just go click FBAR, hop down to the server and press SSH, and then I'm in. No worries. It's pretty sweet. That's mostly what I use it for, honestly, is for that. I'm sure I could set up a shortcut to do that, but it's really handy to be able to do that, jump around to those different servers, and it keeps up to date with all the IP changes in Forge and any new servers that are added. It just handles it, and it's really nice. It's really nice. So
I've been, you know that I love the command line, so I've been using the Forge CLI, and
how's that going? I haven't used that really.
Yeah, well, we did the whole thing at work where they went through everyone's computers and installed the new, you know, corporate spyware and security stuff for everyone. And I SSH'd into.
I gotta know what the corporate spyware is. I don't know. It's like Symantec, is like Defender. What is it?
There's it's like CrowdStrike. There's a whole bunch of different tools. Like they're like run this thing and it installs like 7 or 8 different things that I was, you know. But yeah, I SSH'd into a Forge server because I was in the office and I'm like, I haven't got my laptop here, but I needed to quickly update an env file for something. And IT pings me on Slack like 5 minutes later. They're like, did you run this command on your computer? I'm like, yeah. They're like, I don't like the look of that. I'm like,
that's hilarious.
It's because the way that the Forge CLI works is it will set up a I forget what it's called, but in SSH you can set like a connection kind of socket. And so if you SSH into a server and then you SSH into that same server again, it will reuse the open connection rather than opening a new connection. And that apparently raised the ire of CrowdStrike because it thought that it could be used as some kind of like reverse backdoor or something. And I'm like it's fine. I own the server. Here is the source code on GitHub showing you what this is doing, explaining why it's doing it. Like, you're like, oh, we're gonna have to look at this.
That's hilarious.
So
I love it.
Yeah. So all kinds of fun and games, but yeah, Forge.
Yeah,
I use the CLI.
It's not gotten that bad yet for us. It's not gotten that bad. We do have a couple antivirus things installed that you know, that are running, but it's not the end of the world. It's fine. I more don't like it on our actual production servers when we've got like, you know, corporate spyware, as you put it, watching all the resources, and it's like then you've got 3 of them running on there, and it's like, guys,
yeah, that's right.
It's like eating up memory and CPU cycles.
They've got stuff monitoring our AWS account as well. So when Forge sets up a new server, it sets up, if you don't tell it to use an existing security group, it will set up a new security group with some like default access rules. So it lets through port 22, port 80, port 443 for everything because, you know, it's a web server. It needs to be able to talk to the internet, but everything else is closed by default. But it does allow UDP connections on port 0 through 65,535. And they're like, this is raising some flags. I'm like, I can remove it. Like, it's fine. So it's just because it was the
actually
first one
pretty
that was
sweet
created.
though. I mean, Yeah, I mean that's actually
Yeah,
really good. That's great that you guys are that on top of it, that they're
yeah,
watching that stuff and that
that
they're getting those
they're
alerts.
straight
That's
onto
pretty
it.
cool.
So,
Yeah,
but I'm
that's really
like,
good.
this is like a development server. It's not, but best practice, etc., etc.
For
So they're
sure.
like, please remove that rule. And I said, it's not like the server is publicly accessible to the world, because a Forge server,
Right.
obviously, with the number of servers that it has provisioned, the number of eyeballs that it has across it, and the kinds of companies that we know about that are using it, let alone the companies that we don't know about that are using it, it's like they're provisioned fairly securely by default. So they've got the firewall, IPW or whatever, running on the server when it's provisioned, and it is the same thing. So the security group is only allowing port 22, port 443, port 80 on IPv6 and IPv4, and the firewall is the same. So it denies by default. So they were actually pretty happy with the way that it was that the server was configured by default. But they said, can
Yeah.
we just I said, we're only using this one server because we're using it to spin up review environments. So when we open a pull request, we'll go and set up a new site, set up a database, do all the deployment stuff so that we can review a PR. And then when the PR is closed, it will then go and destroy that site as well and delete the database and all that kind of stuff. So,
But it doesn't provision a new server. It just provisions a new site on there. It's just
a
a
new site on the
like
server.
a staging
Yeah.
server.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So
that's really
that's
interesting.
been a bit of a rigmarole to get up and running. Ryan Chandler has got this Forge previewer, which I can put a link to in the show notes, which does most of the work. So it's using, I think it's using the Forge SDK under the hood to just go and make all these requests. So it'll go and spin all this stuff up, and it does. But it's no different to setting up CI for the first time, where you do it like a million times to get it right. And so I actually triggered the let's encrypt. It's like you cannot provision a certificate for this same site any more times today. Try again tomorrow. So it's like, oh,
interesting.
Guess I'll try that again tomorrow. Running into it only allows you to trigger commands, but commands can only run for 2 minutes. Where our deploy script, because it's like building the backend, not building the backend, but it's like running migrations and seeders and all of this kind of stuff to get the base application going, and then it does all of the JavaScript stuff. So it's doing the React build, it's doing the inertia build, like there's bits and pieces
it's going to take a while
that are happening there. So it's like timing out, and then we okay, how do we get this to run a recipe? Because a recipe can run for as long as you like, but it doesn't have the context of the site. So we have to put when we deploy the site, we need to basically write some files. Like we put the branch name into a file, we put the PR number into a file, we put a few different bits of information into a file, so that we can then go, okay, I'm going to create a recipe on the fly dynamically that will take all of these values and put them into the recipe, so that we can run this recipe, which will run for as long as it needs to run until the process finishes. So there's all kinds of little workarounds that we've got going just to kind of get this stuff working. And it has been an interesting challenge, I will say.
Yeah. The other thing you could do is, if you wanted to, you could do the GitHub compilation of your assets and then push them up to AirDrop. I do think that's a pretty good option, honestly. That's worked really well for us. I think
this is where we're going to land. Yeah, because we already do the build, so we have all the steps in place to do it. So we would build the assets in GitHub Actions. It then uploads to the tarball to wherever, and then we can just slip that back out. But that at the moment happens based on tag name. And so obviously for a review environment, we don't have a tag yet, because
that's true.
It's still work in progress. So we'll find some way around it. But I'll pick that up again some other time.
The way that the AirDrop one works is it will basically say, it looks at its airdrop.php in the config file, and then there's a listing of the things that you watch that are within a scope of if anything within this changes, then basically recalculate a hash. So what it does is it basically says, give me a SHA or a MD5 of the different items inside of these directories, or these different files. It could be files or directories, and then it sort of mashes them all together into one hash. And if that hash matches, then it doesn't do anything. It means that's the same
Right.
it was last
Yeah.
time, right? Or
Mhm.
it'll check the hash to see if its assets exist in a compiled state already in your storage location. If they do, it
Yeah.
doesn't recompile. So instead of having like a tag tying those assets to like a tag, it basically just ties almost to like it's not even a commit SHA. It's like a list of
It's a SHA
if
of
it
the
changed.
files, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
SHA of the system at the time that the assets were compiled. So it works really good actually. The only thing that I'm wanting to do on some of these though is, and we just talked about this the other day, is we're using a lot of minutes up when we're still in a draft state. You know what I mean? Like it's still in a draft. It's not ready for review
Yeah, we
yet.
don't
They're
run
just like,
any of our tests or anything like that when it's in draft.
yeah. And do you just check to see if is in draft? I think you could say is draft is true. Like if is
Yeah,
draft
there's
is true, then
something like that you can put into the action that basically says like only
yeah,
run this if.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
if it's in draft, we basically don't run our tests. We don't run.
yep. Yeah,
We
exactly.
don't do a build. We don't do something else, and it does. So we'll still
All
do
that stuff.
some other checks. Like we'll still do a subset of the checks, but not full test suite. And that
Yeah,
saves
yeah.
us a
Because
bit of
that's
time. Like I can't remember the
we're doing
last
that right
time that I
now.
saw
Yeah.
a minutes email coming through.
No, I don't actually either. It's just it annoys me.
We
You know what I
would
mean?
get
Like
them
I'm
all
sitting
the
sometimes
time. Like we used to get them
oh
all
really?
the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe your processes take a little bit longer than ours do, and so that's maybe why. Or maybe you guys have more people actually pushing code and stuff. So that's possible. So I think it's just annoying to me more than anything. That it's building when I know that it doesn't matter. Like that build is gonna
Yeah.
not have whatever.
Yeah. Especially if you're doing like a whip commit, making a change, whoops, had a
Exactly.
typo, and then push
Totally.
another whip commit
You got it.
to a draft PR. You don't want to, because then you like
No,
start it
it's
and then that cancels and then it starts again and then
exactly.
all of that process. So yeah,
It's
definitely
stupid.
for draft PRs, we don't run it.
Yeah. Speaking of CI, this was an interesting tip I picked up today. You might have seen me post it on Twitter, but I had this set of tests that were just flaky. If you ran a single test in that class, it wouldn't have a problem. It would just run through that test and no problem. But if you ran the entire class of tests, I think there was like 9 different tests in there, and like 35 assertions, then one of them would randomly fail. And it wasn't ever, it wasn't typically the same one. It would be like test number 5 failed, test number 8 failed, test number 7 failed. And it was like there was data providers in there too. And so sometimes it would it was so annoying. So annoying.
Yeah.
And you'd have to sit there and run it 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 until like the 6th time it would fail. And you just hope that you stopped before you pressed run again so you could inspect what error what was and like, okay, what's the thing that might be happening here? What I ended up doing is I ended up just basically I was trying to be too specific in some of the tests. And so I think what was happening is there was some leftover data from previous tests that was conflicting with existing, with new data that was getting pushed in.
Yeah,
and so basically it was screwing up some of my assertions. Anyway, what I was trying to do was basically say, just run this until it fails. That's what I wanted it to do. I wanted something to just run until it failed. And so Wilbur Powery sent me this. He's like, hey, try this. And so if I can remember it off the top of my head, I think it was you just run this in your terminal. So it was while PHP artisan test and then -- filter, and then you'd pass in the class name of the test that you wanted to do. So you're saying run PHP artisan test and filter down to this list of tests. So you say while that, and then you say sleep 1 and then done. And so it would just keep running them until it failed. So it's like basically as long as comes back successful, sleep for 1, try again. Sleep for 1, try again. And then it would just keep doing that until it failed, which was so nice. And then also there was a little bit of a modification on it, which I did not put in there, which would allow you to see how many times it had ran before it failed. But that was so handy when I was trying to get it to fail. Because sometimes you just want, like sometimes it takes, it doesn't fail except for once every 20 times. But when it fails, you want to be able to figure out why it failed.
Yeah.
And so that was really handy and was super helpful. I did get all those tests fixed up, and so hopefully it only took like 45 minutes, but it'll never fail again. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Hopefully.
So yeah, that was really handy.
I did see that tweet. There are someone else a little while ago tweeted a similar thing. I think it was Paul Redmond actually that tweeted about it. PHP unit does or used to or has deprecated a like a -- retry flag, and Pest has a retry flag in there as well, so you can say just like run this 100 times or whatever, which
Nice.
does the same thing under the hood, probably slightly more efficiently in air
Yep, yep,
quotes,
I'm sure.
because I would imagine, rather than like booting up the whole framework, running the test, tearing down the framework, sleeping, booting the whole thing, it would like keep the framework, you know, in memory as it does between tests a little bit more efficiently. So it'd probably be a bit quicker. But yeah, the idea is the same. Keep running this test until it fails, and then you can kind of inspect it. So glad to hear that you got the
Yeah.
end of it. I think flaky tests are the worst kind of things, especially the kind that, like, you know, when you're writing code and you run it like 100 times as you're writing the code and you're doing the whole red green refactor thing, and then you push it, and the first time you push it to CI and it fails, it's like, come on, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so irritating. I know. Especially if it's only failing on online. Like it's only failing like in your your GitHub
Yeah.
CI or whatever, right? That's
It's
the
the
most
worst when
frustrating.
it fails in CI because because you can't easily debug it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So there actually was two things I wanted to talk about. The first one I wanted to talk about was Laracon talk topics. I would love to discuss that with you. But the other one was, oh man, I literally just slipped my mind. We'll see if it comes back to me. It was specifically about some of the CI stuff, but it doesn't matter. We can loop back to it. So
Talk
Laracon
topics. What do
talk
you got?
ideas. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we bought all my tickets this morning, which is great. And then was
Sold
talking
half
to
of
you
them, by the
guys and
way.
was like, I know, that's awesome. On day one. So cool.
Half of the tickets on day one, which is crazy.
Oh yeah. That's incredible. I mean, that's really, really, I'm so excited for Taylor. Like that's gotta be a big relief. You know what I mean? Um I had Wilbur Powery actually ask. I think he's bought tickets like 3 times, and he's like, hopefully the visa gods smile on me this time and
Mm.
let me get a visa so I can get to the U.S. He's been trying to get here for forever. So that'd be really cool if he was able to come. But he was like, "Do you think I'd be able to like get rid of it if I wasn't able to come?" I'm like, "Absolutely." There's always a waiting list every year. There's a waiting list of people trying to get there who didn't get
Mm-hmm.
tickets or who didn't, to get them in time or whatever. Um, so yeah, absolutely. But I was talking to you guys today about like what would be some interesting topics. So again, I'm debating on whether to do it or not, just because I know what sort of commitment it is, but also I know that now
Yeah,
that I've done it once, I know kind of what to expect.
for
Um,
sure.
and so I'd be interested in doing it again. So I kind of have one idea where I would be following up my state machines talk with this idea of state charts. However, I think in order to do that effectively, I would probably have to build a library, because it's one of those things where, great, I know this thing, but you still can't really use it because there's no implementation of it inside of PHP. There is in other
Mm-hmm.
languages. There just isn't in PHP. This is the thing that we were looking at like ages ago. I mean, like last year
Yeah.
at some point. Remember, I was sending that
Mm-hmm.
and we were looking at it back and forth. I think it would require building something like that. And I also think it would require having that work really well in Livewire, integrate well into Livewire. I think those would be the two things that I would have to make happen in order to be able to say, let me explain state charts and here's why they're valuable. And then, ta-da, here's something that you can use to implement them today. I think that's what that would take. So that would be a lot of work, but I think it could be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The other one that I was thinking about was using creating, like, it's sort of like a gateway pattern. So Adam Wathan talked about this back when he had what was it, test driven Laravel, I think was the name of the
Mm-hmm.
course way back when, and he had Stripe, which was his payment processor, right? And so a lot of us, what we would have done back then is we just use Stripe, and then when we need to be in development mode or local mode, we just use our test tokens, right? Which is great. But there's
Yeah.
sometimes where you don't really want to give those test tokens to somebody either. You don't want every developer on the team to have those test tokens, and so there are just certain areas of the application that they can't really access or can't test out or can't mess with, and so you kind of have to like delegate the work out only the people who you can trust with those specific things, and etc. So
Yeah.
instead, what Adam proposed was you have this layer in front of that service that is a gateway, right? So you have a contract that you say, here are the methods that you can interact with this gateway, and then you have a real version of it, right? So you have a Stripe payment gateway, and then you also have a fake payment gateway. And the fake payment gateway essentially just gets swapped out in development and in your tests, and allows you to provide fake responses. The cool thing about that is even if you don't have the real API implemented yet, if you're the one who's going to be building that other API, you can sort of spike it out and play around with it with this gateway pattern. And I was again talking with Wilbur Powers about this today, and he's like, I've worked at a bunch of different development shops, and you guys are the only ones that I've seen use this effectively. And so I think that might be an interesting one to give a talk on. I don't know if I could fill up a whole 30 minutes with it. Maybe. So
yeah,
that's the second one. I don't know if I have a third
it's an
one.
interesting one, and like borrowing an Adam Wathan concept
and
giving that talk at the same time that he's going to be at that conference
that's
may
ballsy.
place undue stress and pressure upon yourself. So think about that one.
No, Ad is a cool guy. I would totally give him full credit. I mean, the Cruddy by Design shout out in my last talk, like, Adam Wathan's a legend. That's super exciting that he's going to be there, though. That's really fun.
I don't think that it sounds like he's not going to give a talk, though. It sounds more like
he's going to be on a panel.
Thing.
Yeah. Which will be
cool.
interesting. I think it's been a while since they've done the panels. Yeah, you guys did that at AU, but I don't think they've done.
Yeah, we had a team panel. I think Europe had a Laravel team panel. I think they're a bit of fun to kind of get some audience participation to kind of so that you're not just listening to talks for 2 days.
If you do it well, it's really good. If you have the right people on the panel and you have the right person leading the discussion, they can be super interesting and really beneficial. Yeah. Agreed. And in fact, I was at a conference in January where almost every single talk was a panel. So they would basically have a topic, and so it wasn't just like a, hey, tell us what you know about whatever. It was directed around this specific thing. It was like, how is AI going to affect this area? Or how are you using chatbots effectively to manage this area of your business, or blah, 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 right? So it was like very much centered around a specific thing. But then they basically just said, hey, you guys are the experts. Figure out where you want to go with this and figure out some questions. And then they just left it up to the people who were on the panel to, pre-plan what they wanted to talk about and where they wanted to go with it. And they were all super interesting. And yeah, like you said, there was a ton of audience participation as well, because at the end of the talk, you'd have people, or even in the middle of it, they'd have people raising their hand like, well, what about this particular thing? Or what about that? It was really good. I thought it was super beneficial. So
yeah, we controlled that a little bit for the AU. So there was a bunch of questions that I had put together ahead of the conference that I sent to all of the speakers, to all of the teams, so that they would have some prepared response.
Which I think is the best way to do it. Yeah. Off the cuff is fine, but
you got to give them something that they can be ready to kind of answer, so that they're not put on the spot. Because the last thing you want is to put people on the spot on a stage in front of people. And we kind of did that broadly for all of the Q&A. And that meant also that the Q&A was a little bit moderated, in that we, if 3 or 4 people asked the same question, we kind of made sure that we only asked that question once. If someone asked or said something that, like, we don't get a lot of that in our community, but you don't want to run the risk of someone saying something daft, and just like putting the speaker, like, you don't want to put the speaker on the spot. And by moderating the questions a little bit, and then, saying, okay, these are the 2 that we're going to ask if you want to, and that way you can have that level of participation. The person like, some people are just embarrassed to ask a question as well. And so, it's nice to kind of give those people as well the opportunity to kind of ask something of a speaker without, and then you don't have to worry about getting a microphone around to people so they can be heard, especially, the size of venues, Europe and US, even like where we were with 300, it gets a bit gnarly to run a microphone around.
For sure.
So I think we did. For sure. I think that worked out really well. But yeah, I like the panel. I like that it breaks things up a little bit. Hopefully we can get some Laravel people to the conference this year. I think Dries may be out because he's got a baby.
Oh wait, he's out?
Baby due.
Oh, gotcha.
Out.
Yeah.
He's got a baby coming later this year. Babies are going around the community at the moment. So
yeah. Couple years.
If we can get
years behind the older guys.
Yeah. I was talking to someone the other day, and I'm like, dude, I'm going to be 37 this year. Like, I remember when I started work, and like the oldest, this was my first job, and the oldest people were like 31. It's like, wow, you guys are really old. But now I'm 36, going on 37, and it's like, and like sometimes
I know, dude.
You say something, and people look at you like, I've never even heard of that. It's like, what is happening? I've become the eldest statesperson in the
love it.
company. So I'm older.
Yeah.
I'm older than my
Embrace the role,
last
right? Embrace the
two.
role.
Yeah, I'm older than my last two, like, bosses, CEOs.
Wow. Dang. And
And I
that
took
makes
this
you just
job
be
and I
like,
found out I took this
like,
job
what
and
am
I
I doing
found
with my
out,
life?
like, and I still took, like, so I found out beforehand. I took the job after. I'm like, I got to stop working for people younger than me. This is no good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's funny. Dude, I've looked in the mirror a couple times recently and be like, dude, where's those my eyes look so tired.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't feel that tired. I just look that tired. Oh man, it's
I
happening.
said
It
to
happens to
Reed the
all
other
of
day, I
us,
said,
right? It's
I'm
like
getting
you gotta
old.
embrace it.
I get to like 4:30 in the afternoon and I'm like, I can't do it anymore. I gotta
Oh,
sit. I
it's hilarious.
can't do a thing. And then, like, I've
My
fallen asleep
yeah.
on the couch. I got
Oh,
up
dude, I've
at
been there.
8:55 the other day. I said to her, I'm going to bed. And she looks at me
Uh,
and she looks at the clock and she's like, what do you mean? I said, I
yeah,
am tired.
old
I
man
have been up
Michael.
since
Old man Michael.
5:45. In my
Yep,
defense, I get up early and I go for a run in the morning.
that's
So
great. Yeah,
it
keep your youth that
tires me
way.
out.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Hey,
it's
we
going well.
had this is off topic, but we had my son's basketball like awards ceremony was yesterday, and they had
Mhm.
a dads versus the boys
Oh no.
game. Oh, dude, it was great.
Always
It was
risky.
great. It's always risky, but you know,
Did
I
you
had to.
Dikembe?
It's so.
Did you Dikembe?
Oh, dude, it's just hilarious because you know, yeah, exactly. I didn't block anybody. I didn't feel right doing that. And but like I'm 6'3". Like these kids are all like 7th and 8th
Yeah,
graders, right? So it's
for
like
sure.
it's just you don't want to be a jerk, you know. But we did smoke them, and man, it felt good. uh it's not hard to box out an 8th grader, right? You know, it's just like
Right.
every rebound, any layup.
You got to be
I did
careful
miss I
though.
did miss a layup though. It was embarrassing.
You got to be
Yeah,
careful
I
though.
was sad.
These young kids growing up now watching the game, like, you don't want one of them to pull a chair on you and you end up on your
Yeah,
wallet. That
yeah,
would be embarrassing.
yeah. Oh, hey, the one other
Missed
thing I was
layups
going to
though.
mention
We've
because
been there. We've all been there.
yeah. Oh, exactly, dude. It was bad. Well, to be fair, I did make a pretty good cut to the basket, but then I just couldn't finish it. So it wasn't like it was like a wide open layup. I made those, but anyway, dude, it's hilarious because Harrison, my son, is going through. They're studying Australia right now.
Hmm.
It's like
Yes,
as
you
do
sent
you remember
videos
my
earlier.
oldest,
Yeah, yeah.
Graham was doing
I
this, right?
remember
Graham,
when
you remember
Graham was doing
Graham?
it when we first. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, when we first started this, like 6 years ago, you know, and he was going through Australia, and like he was talking about all the koalas. Or so what Harrison is doing it now, and so he was telling me today, he was like, "Daddy, I learned all about Australia today." I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." Do you talk to a guy in Australia? I'm like, every week. I talk to him every week. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, so they say, good day, mate. And that means hello, friend. And I'm like, oh, really? He's like, yep, that's what it means. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then he was telling me about all the animals and
Mhm.
platypus and how it has fur like a bear and a mouth like a duck and all the stuff. And then he was telling me, he said, I'm gonna start with the most cute and end with the most deadly. I was like, okay, sounds good. So he started with a koala and he ended with a box jellyfish, I think. And so that was pretty
Gotta look
funny.
out for
He was
them.
telling me,
Yeah.
yeah, he was telling me all about, they're deadly, venomous, poisonous. I was like, okay. A rockfish or something like that too. I don't know.
Hmm.
He said, your foot will turn purple if you step on it. I was like, oh boy. It's like, we should probably not go to Australia. He's like, yeah, I don't know. We should probably. But it was great. So anyway, he's looking, I told him, I said, if you send Michael a message and say hi to Eli and Liv, maybe they'll send you a message back from all the way from Australia. So he was
Yeah.
really excited to get your message about the outback that you've never been there. And then we spent 30 minutes on my phone looking at a map and being like, here's where we are and here's where Michael is. And I zoomed right in on Adelaide and like, that's where he lives right there. And then we looked at the outback. I was like, there's nothing out there, dude. It's just sand
Nothing.
and
It's
little scrub.
just sand.
He's like, where are the kangaroos? I was like, I don't know, man. He was looking for kangaroos on the map. I was like, I don't think you're going to find any.
You're not gonna find them there.
Yeah, that was funny
Excellent. All right.
though.
Let us wrap this one up. Buy your
We shall.
tickets to Laracon US because
Yes,
those
indeed.
are on sale, and maybe by the time that you hear this, they'll be just about sold out, which is wild.
It is.
Buy tickets to PHP Tech that you are
Yes.
speaking at. We know that you're speaking at at that one. So definitely check that out. We are very close to Laracon AU announcements. I sent off the signed venue contract on Sunday night. So that's all locked and loaded. Now it's, just the announcement. I've got our first speaker announcement ready. I got to put a video together. I enjoyed doing the content last year, and I don't know if anyone saw any of it, but I enjoyed doing it. So we're going to do some video again this year. We're finalizing the branding at the moment. Organizing some bits and pieces. Got the I don't know if I talked about it here last time, but we've got two hotel vendors, companies. I don't know what the word is, but like 2 hotels and like 8 properties in the city that will be offering some discounted accommodation to our lovely attendees.
That's
so
awesome.
I'm hoping to kind of get people together, get them some great deals, and get them to really make the most of the Laracon experience. And I will link in the show notes also. Luke Downing, I mentioned earlier, is on the Laracast's team, and he overtook the Laracast snippet this week and put out an episode talking about why you should attend Laracon. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes, not just AU, but like all of them. It's just, I don't think unless you've been, you understand just what you get beyond just the talks. So definitely,
it's all the connections.
Definitely listen to that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that is it. I've got no more to say at this time.
Episode 151, folks. Find show notes for this at northmeetsouth.audio/151. Hit us up on your follow us on your podcatcher of choice. Hit us up on Twitter at Michael Dorinda or at Jacob Bennett or North South Audio. Until next time, folks, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.